Welcome back into the On Deck Circle podcast. The American League Championship Series is behind us. Alex and I are in front of you. If you're new to our podcast, we've recently switched over to video, and so you get to see us in a whole new light, literally. And as we dive in, the National League Championship Series feels like a thing of the past at this point, but we're going to talk about both.
Ancient history, if you will.
But we're also going to kind of, preview the World Series that starts on Friday. So let's just dive right in. Let's go from most distant past to most recent past, and then we'll look into the future. Sound good?
Let's do it. All
right. So supposedly there was a team that was going to be playing the Los Angeles Dodgers.
Yeah, we thought they were going to have competition. Turns out that was a farce. Everything I read by way of graphic, every advertisement, every article, every bracket showed the Milwaukee Brewers as being the opponent for the Los Angeles Dodgers. And to say they didn't show up at all is an understatement.
Yeah, I mean, I think they even played a couple games in Milwaukee, if memory serves me right.
They did. And turns out Game 1 was really like, it feels as close as that series got, and then it was all downhill from there.
Yeah, I mean, I think as soon as Pedro Martinez was like, "Oh, I really like these people in Milwaukee. I think they're going to win," you were like, "Oh no, this."
Yes, exactly. Yeah,
dude.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a 2-1 game in Game 1, and it felt really competitive. Obviously, the score was quite close, but then the story. I mean, the Milwaukee Brewers offense was atrocious, but not only was it offense atrocious, the starting pitching from the Dodgers was historic.
Oh, it was amazing,
and that's gonna that's gonna be a subject of discussion, I think, through the remainder of the podcast, especially as we look forward to the World Series. But there's just absolutely nothing the Brewers hitters could do. You score 1 run a game, 4 games across. It wasn't that the Dodgers were just raking the whole series. It just the Milwaukee Brewers couldn't do anything.
They were just that bad.
They were just that bad, because you're looking at it and you're like, okay, there were 2 games 5-1. Okay, yeah, those are solid victories for the Dodgers, but then 2-1, 3-1, those are games the Brewers probably look back on and are like, man, we really wish we would have been in that, and possibly even playing as late as last night, and in a 7-game format. But I hesitate, and this. I hesitate to say anything positive about the Dodgers, but Blake Snell's been fantastic this whole postseason. It's weird because the narrative with him has been, and I've heard it on multiple starts now, the MO on him is like basically he's been handled with kid gloves his whole career and like kind of has his training wheels on. And since he's come to LA, they're really pushing the envelope with him, especially in the postseason, letting him go deeper into games, letting him go that third trip through the lineup, and he's just shown himself really, really well. And so props to Blake Snell. And then it just like Blake Snell got it started. Yamamoto kept it going with just a complete game, absolute just shutdown of the Milwaukee Brewers. And then you go down and you're like, well, what are we going to get out of Shohei Ohtani in the fourth spot in the rotation? And it turns out he's pretty much been an ace in the 4th spot of the rotation so far. So, I mean, it's just like, what are you going to do here? So it's rough. But as far as the hitters are concerned that are opposing those guys.
Yeah.
And, the Achilles heel is the bullpen for the Dodgers. And yeah, it turns out, we haven't had to deal with that because the starting pitching is just, was fantastic. And
do you think the National League, do you think the NLCS was more a testament to the Brewers' ineptitude and lack of offense, or do you think it was more of a testament to the dominance of the Dodgers starting pitching in that series?
I think I think it's a little bit of both. You don't want to read too much into the whole discussion about peaking too soon. Obviously the Brewers were just a juggernaut the whole second half of the year, running right up into the playoffs more or less. And I'm not going to, they struggled against the Cubs in the divisional round. And, it could have easily been the Chicago Cubs playing the Dodgers in the NLCS. But it just felt like a team that, all of a sudden was they were losing gas. My gut says the pitching for the Dodgers was just too good. And I think that's what it was at the end of the day. I mean, they're a scrappy ball team. They had some base runners throughout the series, but it's just like they couldn't muster a hit when they needed it. If they end up winning, who knows, right? Like they lose that for game 1, 2-1, and it went pretty much down.
It was down to, the Brewers had the tying and winning runs on in that game.
Yeah, so it's 1-0. Yeah, they go up 2-0, and then Roki Sasaki looked terrible in that game 1. And, if they find a way to win that game, who knows what happens after that, but they lost it. And so it's like, okay. And then basically, you lose 2 at home. It's, the pitching just got better as you went out west. And so you don't have much of a shot. So I tend to think that the Dodgers pitching was elite, and it showed itself that in throughout that whole series. And so, yeah.
All right.
Anyway.
So let's transition to the American League Championship Series. That wrapped up. Mariners, Blue Jays, much better series in terms of quality of entertainment value.
What a weird series, though, man. Like, what a weird series, because you have the Mariners win both games in Toronto, and then you have the Blue Jays win the first 2 in Seattle, and then Seattle won game 5 to go up 3-2, and then Toronto won both games back in or Toronto won both games back, and just a very interesting flow to that series, because
what you're bringing out on that is that the visiting team won the first 4 games, and the home team won the last 3 games.
Yeah, so just you had some interesting momentum swings when you didn't really expect it, because when Toronto's down 0-2 going back to play 3 games in Seattle, you're just probably like, oh, this is this is a really tall mountain to climb, and it was, but they came back and made it look easy in Seattle. Now they were down 3-2 going home. Game 6 was a snoozer, as far as the Toronto Blue Jays really took it to them, and then Game 7 really lived up to the expectation, and it was a fantastic baseball game overall. But
Game 6, you got to give props to Trey Yesavage, and you got to give credit to the defense of the Blue Jays.
Yes.
3 straight inning-ending double plays they turned, and you're like, on the one hand, props to the Blue Jays. On the other hand, you think of the Seattle Mariners, and you're like, dude. Yeah, you had 1 out, a runner on third base, and you couldn't get the run home.
Yeah, the headline I read said, Yesavage had a dominant outing.
No, that's not accurate.
I don't think it was. It was a gutsy outing.
He got bailed out many times.
Yeah, but he grinded. He grinded for 5 innings or 6 innings, whatever it ended up being, because he's loading the bases every other inning. And somehow, with less than 2 outs, and somehow they're finding their way out of it. And the power of the double play it's a force in baseball, and that showed up in a big way. In that particular game, the offense showed up. But man, I tell you, I'm a Lions fan, so I'm watching Monday Night Football, but I'm kind of bouncing back and forth between the games. And Lions game wraps up, and I turn it on just in time. Brian Woo's, in his second inning of work.
Mariners.
For the Mariners. Dan Wilson's going to answer a lot of questions, I'm sure. He probably already has regarding his handling of the bullpen. In yesterday's game, he's got power arms in the back of that bullpen and didn't seem to play the matchups real well. But regardless, turned it on just in time to see Brian Woo walk the leadoff batter in the bottom of the seventh inning. And then the 9-hitter comes up and ropes a single. I think it was Rivas. Not Rivas. He's for the Mariners. Sorry.
Maybe your boy Davis Schneider,
Ernie Clement.
Clement
at the bottom of that order. He ropes a single, and then next thing you know, it's first and second, and then it's like, we're going to go to the bullpen, and they bring in Bizzardo, I take that back. Leadoff walk, and then Bizzardo comes in, ropes a single, and then George Springer comes up, the only guy with really much playoff experience at all.
And he's got a lot.
And starts him off 1-0. Now, and they were talking about on the broadcast, a couple games ago, he takes a ball off the knee. And it was debatable whether or not he'd actually finish the series out. And sure enough, he did. And then he just hit a tank job to left field. And the game's not over at that point, because the bullpen is really dicey for the Blue Jays. Just like everything was done. The crowd was fantastic. They knew that the World Series was imminent. The shot of Brian Woo in the bullpen or in the dugout after that play, whatever. And it begs the question. You have one of maybe the most dominant closer in the American League in Munoz.
Fettuccine Alfredo Munoz.
Maybe you bring him in to face the top of the order in the seventh, try to get 2 innings of work out of him.
That would have been something that that the Mets would have tried. As a matter of fact, they did do it. Remember in their game finale, regular season finale against the Marlins, you had Edwin Diaz coming in for 2+ innings.
Well, and that's the thing, and that's where it's like, as what's the rule for the manager? Do you go with the understanding that the last 3 outs in the 9th inning are the hardest outs to get, or do you play the matchups in the 7th and the 8th inning? And ultimately, if you get through Springer and Vladdy at the top of the order, then it's like, well, then you can bring in like a Bizzardo at the back end, or not even that, but like Matt Brash, who didn't pitch in the game, and so that's the other question. And again, I don't know exactly who was. It's Game 7. Everybody's available. Doesn't really matter who. Brash did not get into the game at all. So it just makes you lots of questions there. Dan Wilson, I'm sure, as he was shaving his mustache this morning, was probably looking, doing a deep dark look down his soul this morning as far as decisions he made yesterday. But that's all to say, I'm not disappointed. I am understanding that I've been against the Dodgers every round of this playoffs format so far. I think this is as good of a World Series matchup as we could ask for.
Yeah.
Dodgers, Blue Jays with the home field advantage. Just really excited to watch this. I was really having a hard time when the Mariners were up 3-1. I'm like, I don't have a dog in this fight. Neither team really interests me a ton. But now all of a sudden we've got a lot of firepower in the lineup for both teams. The pitching for the Blue Jays is going to have to show up. And they're going to have to find a way to get to the bullpen for the Dodgers. If they can't get to the bullpen for the Dodgers, it's going to be a quick series, I think. But
yeah, I'd agree. First off, going back to what you said, George Springer, maybe his home run is the shot heard round Canada.
Absolutely. Maybe they'll finally get their independence from Great Britain now.
Didn't you say you saw some smoke coming across the lake from Toronto this morning in your neck of the woods?
Yeah, we're so close to the Canadian side. There was a collective just like shaking of the ground last night when that shot was heard. And then this morning there was just a general, just like a smoldering feel coming from
like
across it. And
haze.
again, yeah, and you're like, well, you haven't won the World Series yet, but nonetheless they're excited and they should be. But yeah, no, it's interesting because it's an interesting franchise because obviously the Expos, aren't a thing anymore, and they've only ever had the Blue Jay. It's a national team. It's not just a city team. There's a whole country that's backing the Toronto Blue Jays, which that's a big wagon to have behind you right now. So
it's very true. It's very true. And let's just a moment of transparency and just kind of eating some crow. You and I both counted out the Blue Jays at the beginning of the year, and we're like, yeah, John Schneider's going to be fired by the end of the year. They're going to
maybe by the All-Star break.
They're not going to be capable. I know at least they're not capable of winning a World Series. So, I mean, like, here they are on the cusp of winning a World Series. And you're just like, man, that, like you said, you look at the Blue Jays lineup and on paper, they can go toe to toe with the Dodgers.
Yes.
They are much streakier than the Dodgers, and they have much less playoff experience than the Dodgers. But you're like, if anyone in the American League could give them a run for their money, it's the Blue Jays. And it'll be interesting, the second straight year where we've had an AL East team and an NL West team in the World Series. Be interesting to see kind of how that shakes out. And first game's Friday on Fox. I don't remember who the starters are. I think I saw
they haven't listed yet. I'm assuming Blake Snell's going to start for the Dodgers.
Yeah, I would assume he would, and probably Kevin Gossman for the Blue Jays.
For the Blue Jays, yeah, there is no pitching matchup listed yet. And again, right off the bat, you have Blake Snell on the road, but again,
potential to see him 3 times in the series.
But Snell, I mean, they had Snell on the road. Let's see this. Let me just go back. Yeah, Snell's pitched on the road. And he was in Game 1 with the Brewers. It wasn't a thing.
8 innings of shutout baseball.
They got to get to him somehow, some way.
The interview afterwards was hilarious because they're talking to him about his start, and they're like, "Hey, as you were sitting there in the dugout, did you feel nervous as the Brewers were trying to mount that comeback?" And you could tell he was holding back from like throwing his manager under the bus for taking him out. And he was like, "Well, I knew our guys would come through." Like, okay, nope, you were nervous, and you were like, "Guys, why can't we throw strikes?" And I'm sure you wished you could have stayed out there for the 9th inning. And you wonder now if he's cruising through 8 innings, if Dave Roberts entertains the possibility of like, hey, let's just skip the bullpen drama, ride this horse to the finish.
It is going to be interesting
to see what happens
because Game 1 is Friday. If my calculations are right, because the Brewers were so terrible, basically they will have gone now over a week without playing a game.
That's right.
Now it'll be the bulk of a week for the Blue Jays, but that's a lot of time to sit around. And so we'll see, if there's a momentum issue or if there's an energy issue on the part of the Dodgers. It's tough to go back to back, no matter how good your team is. And so like they're going to have to, lock in, and this team's been, they've been playing a lot of baseball for the last, 3 years plus, and going back even to COVID and stuff. But my thing is like Ohtani, Betts, whoever they got in the 3 on any given day, Freeman, Will Smith, these guys,
Max, Muncy.
Well, but that top 4, top 5, you might be able to. You just you're going to give up something one trip through, most likely in that run.
Yep.
And how they navigate that, I don't know.
So real quick, as you were talking about the Brewers, I flashed back to one of those moments in the Brewers game that was a huge deal, and there were a lot of people that were confused over the situation that happened. This was game one. Speaking of Max Muncy, that svelte third baseman for the Los Angeles Dodgers, he hit a drive to center field, and Sal Frelick got a bead on the ball, went back, jumped for the ball. The ball hit off his glove, then hit the padding on the wall, and then he caught it before it hit the ground.
Yes.
And the bases were loaded.
Yes.
Threw the ball back in, inning-ending double play because according to the rules, if the ball hits a ground surface, which the wall would be, it's considered a dropped ball. Like there's no catch. So even though it never hit the ground, the fact that it hit the wall was as good as hitting the ground. And so threw in, there was a force play at home, which this was just crazy to me. So it's the first 8-6-2 double play recorded, I believe, in history, definitely postseason history.
Yes.
So he threw into the cutoff man, shortstop, throws into William Contreras behind home plate. He gets the runner at home, and then William Contreras heads up play, runs up to third base and touches the bag because the Dodgers base runners were under the impression that the ball had been caught, and so they had to return back to their bases. That was a brilliant play. So a couple things. First off, let's give props to the umpire crew for that game, particularly the guy behind the plate. Great job of knowing the rules, calling the rules. The left field umpire, the one making the catch, no catch call. That was clear and obvious. Props to them for letting the play develop and letting it end and then sorting out the pieces after all the hullabaloo had ceased. Props to Sal Frelick for getting the ball in quickly. Props to William Contreras for having the heads up to run up the line and touch third base and not just standing around. Because if he's standing around, time's called, the play's dead, and, things kind of end as they end. And so it just heads up by the Brewers. And I felt like, to me, in game one, I was like, oh, that's a huge momentum shifter. Like, this is the Brewers' opportunity to gain an edge. Then they come up, they put the runners on, get Sasaki on the ropes, and then they fail. And you're just like, man, I feel like they pulled every trick out of their bag. They had karma on their side, if that's even a thing. And
yeah, two things. One, hindsight's 2020. It's too bad that it depended on plays like that to try to keep the Brewers relevant in that series. On a second note, Max Muncy was always going to finish that play with a double play. It doesn't matter how, if it was going to be a ground out or whatever. And so Max Muncy's been pretty pedestrian in this whole playoff run so far. And
he hit a home run the next game, bro.
214, batting 214 so far. And
what are the Tigers batting right now in the postseason? Oh, never mind. They're in Cancun, as David Ortiz would say.
So my thing is this. Historic play, awesome play. Wish it would have been, used a little more to build momentum for the Brewers, but it didn't. But I'm looking here, and I've got the run so far for the playoffs for the Dodgers. There's in a week or so, we're going to have two things to consider. One, either the Dodgers had one of the most effortless runs to a World Series in maybe recent playoff memory, or they're actually going to run into some adversity and we're going to have a heck of a series on our hands. Because so far, they've lost one game in the postseason to the Phillies. And, the two games against the Reds, a lot of runs were scored, weren't really competitive. They handled the Phillies 3-1, and then they swept the Brewers 4-0, and none of the games were particularly life-threatening for the Brewers as far as against the Dodgers. So I would love to see some adversity. Not saying the Dodgers won't end up winning, but I just love to see them how they handle some adversity in the playoffs, and we just haven't seen that yet. Obviously, we had the Game 7 for the Blue Jays, and that was, that came, maybe that's their, adversity moment. I'm going to take the Blue Jays in 6. I think they have to win in 6. I think if they go to 7, I think they're having some real problems.
All right.
Because the horses that'll be run out in a game 7 for the Dodgers are going to be elite.
The 4 horsemen.
Yeah. And so, the Japanese tornado or whatever it is, tsunami that's going to come out of the bullpen.
Yeah. All right. Well, I'll go Dodgers in 5.
You want that effortless run to the World Series?
I think Blue Jays win the first game, and then the Dodgers take the next.
Why are you the way you are?
The enemy of my friend is my enemy. Well, look, they beat the Phillies.
Yeah.
I am a Freddie Freeman fan. I'm not going to hide behind that. The dude is first ballot Hall of Famer. Huge Clayton Kershaw fan. First ballot Hall of Famer. Who do they both play for? They play for the Dodgers. I'd love to see Clayton Kershaw go out with a World Series ring. I don't like the principle behind the Dodgers. Let's just spend buku bucks to amass a team of immense talent. However, I do like watching talented teams play baseball, and we'll see what happens in this World Series. It'll be a fun one to watch. It starts on Friday. And we'll be back after the World Series is over, kind of wrap things up, put a bow on our On Deck Circle podcast season. And as we're wrapping things up, thanks so much for your support this season as we've been chronicling the week in and week out, to some mundane, to others of us exciting season of baseball. And we'll see who pulls out on top and becomes World Series champions for the 2025 season.
Real quick before we sign off.
Breaking news
is what Kike Hernandez had some sort of a like he's on the cusp of either becoming like playing in the most postseason games or something. Like if it goes 4 games, which it will, and I can't find exactly what he's on the cusp of doing as far as like most postseason games are concerned. But again, just props to Kike Hernandez for somehow
way to find teams that are good, sign with them, and play with them in World Series and postseasons.
Yeah, but then not only that, but it's not like he's dead weight. Like he actually finds a way to contribute in the postseason. And so it's like it's guys like that need to be picked up on teams, because you need to have guys in the back end of the lineup that are going to be productive. And it turns out he's made a career doing this. And, he's a pretty pedestrian producer during the regular season, but then all of a sudden, I don't know, the lights get real bright and the batting average goes up over 300 and he finds power. And next thing you know, like he's going to be setting a record for, most postseason games played across the span of a career. And, who would have thought, Kike Hernandez of all people would have that as their accolade. And so anyway, that's props to him for kind of, showing the glue guys how to do it. The
Zach McKinstry, if you're listening.
Yeah. The Matt Vierlings of the world. Like, this could be you. And, you guys do your job and you do it regrettably, but Kike Hernandez is still playing ball and he's doing it pretty well. And so
that's right.
We'll see what happens. And I hope you're wrong. And I hope the Dodgers, geez Louise, dude. I just, Anyway, okay.
You're wearing Dodger blue today, or is that Toronto Blue Jay blue?
This is Toronto Blue Jay blue.
Oh, okay. All right.
Blue Jay blue, man.
Well, as Shohei Ohtani will probably do at some point in the World Series, we're on our way out of here. And until next time, with the call, there it is.